Here, it's like you can't explain it. You just know that white people aren't comfortable with you. It's their body language. They talk to you smiling, but their bodies turn sideways.
The color of a person's skin often determines the quality of their life in the United States. Our society still struggles to include its black citizens without prejudice.
If you don't rock the boat, you're a nice person of color. You're articulate, you're nice, you're friendly. If you push too hard, well, you're sounding like an angry black man, and that's divisive. And, well, what good is that serving?
In Wisconsin, the racism we're talking about isn't usually the in-your-face, blatant hatred stereotypically associated with the Deep South. It's subtle, often silent, but ultimately more sinister.
I didn't understand the racial implications of what it meant to be black until I moved to Madison.
What are those implications?
That I was a threat, and that people thought I was here because something was handed to me.
Sociologists call them microaggressions, subtle but significant ways in which African Americans are made to feel like second-class citizens. And those white attitudes are often shaped by ignorance and stereotypes.
There's stores that I'll go in Madison and I'll be followed and I'll look behind and the person will turn their head quickly because they don't want to, seem like they're following me, and I'll walk around, sometimes my kids will ask me, is somebody following me? Because they're very observant.
I went to the grocery store. I had my Associated Bank card. It's green. Well, lo and behold, the EBT state food stamp program has a green card also. So the cashier automatically assumed that I was paying with food stamps and not cash.
Wrong assumptions based on skin color are also a big problem in schools.
I've had times where I raised my hand in one of my honors class and they'd be like, yeah, you can go to the bathroom. I'm like, no, I was trying to answer that question you just did, Be like...
That would be a microaggression.
Yes.
Does that whittle away at your confidence at all?
No. It just makes me 10 times more on fire, like,
A lot of that stuff is subconscious, and it's really about the perception that has been laid out of the black man in America, from enslavement up into the 50s and 60s, and even today.
And 6 in 10 Americans in the same Pew Research Center poll said the country needs to continue making changes to give blacks equal rights with whites.
People could argue today that race is really not a factor in American society, but then how is it that you see people shooting unarmed black people? There's a racial prism to what they see. If race is not a factor, why do we still have an achievement gap based on race? If race is not a factor, how come we have so much unemployment?
Based on one unchangeable characteristic, skin color, the divide between how Wisconsinites are faring has grown to an alarming size. And while Milwaukee is home to an overwhelming majority of the state's underwhelming minority of African Americans, it's in Madison and Dane County where you'll find some of the greatest racial disparities in the nation.
Madison is known to be progressive, liberal, equal opportunity, all of that. But Madison has fooled itself into thinking that we don't really have these problems.
Madison is a tale of two cities for the have and have-nots. And for African Americans, it's unfortunate to say it's not a city where African Americans have always been treated the same or have received the same services.
But it hasn't always been this way. 30 years ago, blacks in Wisconsin were doing better than the national average economically. Now they're doing worse, in many cases, far worse. These disparities start from the day African Americans are born and continue through their childhood and adult lives. From infant mortality to success in school, to jobs and income, to the number of people arrested and put in jail, black people in Wisconsin are far behind their white neighbors.
With such an overwhelming racial majority, many Wisconsinites have never met a black person, let alone know one. So their exposure to African Americans is often what they see in the media, which is often a negative stereotype.
Just because of my skin color, that means I have to be this definition of a stereotype that you have in your head.
I don't think that it's intentional. I think that's just the way that we're programmed. We're all fed the same narrative. And the narrative is that black folks are to be feared, Hispanic folks aren't supposed to be in our country, and white is right.
But those things, Greg, wear at the very soul of our black community. And that's not, it just gets pawned off as Dads don't want to take care of their kids. Kids don't have any discipline. Moms are too busy shopping or watching television or talking loud on their cell phones in public, and no one's taking responsibility.
And it works both ways. Wisconsin is now suffering because of its racial reputation. The state is struggling to bring in and keep more skilled workers. And experts say a big reason is because minorities, especially black Americans, don't feel welcome here.
That you incarcerate African Americans at twice the national average. I mean, over twice the national average. So if you were looking for ethnic talent for diversity, talent from diversity, why would they come here?
It's not just a black problem, it's a community problem. We want Madison to be the type of place where it's best for all. Madison is heralded as the best place in the nation to live. But that can't just be for a segment of the population.